Hello, everyone, and welcome. I suggest we wait a couple of more minutes for other participants to log in. We are going to comply with the same format that you know, a short presentation of the preliminary results for 2023. And in parallel, we are going to have a Q&A session. So please ask your questions during the dedicated Q&A slot, and we are going to answer your questions afterwards. Thank you. We're going to begin. Thank you for participating. I am joined by my colleagues and we are here to answer all of your questions. As we mentioned before, we are going to conduct a short presentation. We are going to start with the market context in 2023. It's data that you already know. We're going to conduct a brief presentation. The inflation part was obvious on the real estate sector. There was a direct effect on mortgages, and this was reflected in a decrease in terms of sales. Of course, this was complemented as well by an increase in terms of energy costs, in our case as well, construction material costs that were affected by the energy costs. And we expect these funding costs that are quite high to be reflected in the prices of this year, in light of the fact that companies with whom we work horizontally have been affected as well by the current situation, as I mentioned. Basically, our value in Bucharest and in the country, our offer is at a higher level, but no, I'm sorry, the price is decreased as compared to other competitors, but solvable demand is an issue. We are on the average market located, and on this market, our clients receive funding by means of bank mortgages. We have projects, of course, where we have over 80% acquisitions by means of mortgages, and so the influence of the context was significant. We also had this continuing unpredictability side on the authorization and permits fund, especially in terms of the Greenfield project for permits and authorizations for the phase that we are currently concluding. In general, in Bucharest, transactions decreased by 19% compared to 2022. And the same percentage, 20%, also related to mortgages. We had a recovery, a slight recovery in the fourth quarter, especially in light of the news related to the increase of the VAT quota. As you know, January came in addition to this essential change for us, with a reduction of facilities that we benefited from in the field of constructions, namely in terms of salaries in the field of construction. And this is going to be reflected, of course, in the rising prices for the medium-term period. Now, in terms of the company key aspects, at the end of the year, we had 377 pre-sold units totaling 260 million RON. They are going to turn into sales as these apartments will be released as of Q2. In terms of revenues, 169 million per year. This was at the end of a construction cycle that was concluded at the end of last year. And the high value of available apartments amounting to 745 million now in the next 2 years will become more liquid, will be liquidated, and the figures will be reflected in the revenues in this regard. In terms of adjusted assets, 1.9 billion RON. Indebtedness level is 28% at the end of the year, with a cash position of 51.3 million RON. We currently have authorizations and permits that are valid for 2,693 units with a market value of 1.9 billion RON. Our holding in terms of land bank is constant, 71 hectares that can be developed with the projects that you all already know: Greenfield Băneasa, Boreal, Copo in Iași, and in Bucharest, Area Verde and Greenfield West on Timișoara Boulevard. They all have an estimated market value of 7.4 billion RON. We're going to go further into financial details. I'm going to give the floor to Claudiu so that he can present the financial data. As mentioned before, in 2023, revenues of the group were strongly influenced by the entire macroeconomical context: high interest rates, high inflation, and the postponement of permit and authorization procedure for Greenfield Băneasa. We sold 157 units as compared to 275 in 2022, but the gross margin was impacted. It increased to 39% as compared to 32% in 2022 as a comparison. The average selling price continued to show a positive trend, 6% in Greenfield Băneasa, and in Luxuria 4%, the average price reaching 1,828 euro per square meter. In terms of balance sheet figures, we registered the increases in terms of Boreal plus Constanța project, as well as investments in billboards and modernization works in at the RCTI company head office. We recovered VAT from the state, and as such, we managed to decrease trade and other receivables by 49%, so half. And at the end of Q1, we concluded the construction works in Greenfield Băneasa, so trade and other payables decreased by 14%. As I mentioned, debt to asset ratio was kept stable at 28%, a lot under our 40% target. So it's a solid position necessary for the following period. Moving on, in terms of total adjusted assets as per EPRA standards, we have sold to 370 million euro, and the net asset remains at 372 million. We have a situation that is not included in the reported statements, approximating 86 million euro. It's a trapped value reflected in the EPRA NAV. As we stated before, EPRA allows the assessment of all lands in which you hold investments in the balance sheet, but via IFRS, we have a differentiation in terms of allocation, so we can't reflect all of these assets as per EPRA, and that's where this difference between EPRA and IFRS comes from. In terms of sales and pre-sales, we have 74% already pre-sold or sold. In terms of finalized projects, we have a total of 982 apartments where construction has been commenced and a 33% sale degree. And what we planned in the next period, 1,711 units and 21 pre-sales and sales. Land bank is stable. It's enough to ensure our future investments. EPRA value is at approximately 180 million euros. Now we're going to briefly touch upon perspectives and outlooks for this year. Our immediate object relates to acceptance of the Greenfield concluded phase of 372 apartments, of which 45% are already pre-sold, and we are going to start to collect to cash in as of Q2 for these apartments. Of course, we continue the sale of the difference for the 55% units from the total available. We are concluding activities to obtain permits for a new phase in Greenfield Băneasa with 598 units. And it's a target to obtain this authorization and permitting this year so that we can start infrastructure works in this project. You know that we had an issue last year and it affected us a lot in terms of Greenfield Băneasa, namely the closing of certain access roads. This had an impact, a negative impact, but we are currently hopefully concluding this issue and its resolution. And hopefully we will find a new solution in terms of improving access to the neighborhood. For our project in Barbu Văcărescu Boulevard, we are currently in the final stage of permitting. We estimate that by autumn this year, we are going to conclude the permitting stage and we are going to submit for construction permits for this year. But of course, this is our target, but of course, this depends on the responses that we receive from the local administration and entities that are included in this permitting process. In parallel, we have for the funding of new projects, we want to liquidate certain assets of the group. Here we are talking about Mall Plaza and Greenfield, where we have a lot of funds blocked in a way, and we want to liquidate them so that we can bring our contribution for future projects that we want to commence this year, mainly the Iași project in Copo, Greenfield Copo, which will include 1,062 units and we want to commence the first phase. And the total value of this project is estimated at 175 million euro. These are the highlights and the targets for this year that we want to reach. And now we open the Q&A session. I would like to invite you all to ask questions.
We have one question. How many dwellings will be finished this year and how many dwellings will be finished in 2025? Thank you. So we'll go back to this table. This year, as stated, we will finalize and deliver the 732 apartments, Greenfield, Taylor. We expect this process to end by the summer and sign the sales purchase agreements. Alongside, for the next year, we want to finish an additional two additional phases, 450 apartments next year. And we estimate that next spring, we will begin a new phase with over 200 apartments in Constanța, where we already have the permits, and we also want to finalize this stage. We have another, if we are talking about distributing dividends, of course, we are considering distributing dividends. We hope that the plan for this year to be executed and to improve a lot the liquidity of the company. And if this sales side will recover, and we estimate a significant recovery in Q3 and Q4, then we will assess this option, and we can talk for 2025 to also distribute dividends.
Care este situația prevânzărilor din cartierul Greenfield?
If we are talking about pre-sales, we saw consolidation last year. You can see here this 45% from the apartments that are finished are also pre-sold in Greenfield Taylor, and the sales did decrease after the closing of the road. And we can see in the past months a recovery in the sales. We cannot talk about consolidation, stagnation, but we were affected it affected 340 apartments in Greenfield and the selling process per se. There is another question about Timișoara, Cluj, and Brașov. When will we begin the development? We assessed each city, and historically we have been present in Cluj. We have an issue with the local administration there, a litigation there, and we've had provisions who also affected our results. But we are also looking at Timișoara and Brașov, but before 2025, we will not enter these cities. Another question, which is Greenfield West process. Where are we there? To have details. We are in the final phase of modification of the regional planning, urban planning. This one, the prior one, it had NZEB, it didn't have NZEB, and now we want to integrate all these certificates, and we modified the project and we submitted. It's an ongoing process for receiving the permits. Another question for the bonds. You had this issuance, 9%. Isn't it a bit high when compared to that ratio? Yes, it's a high coupon, but the amount is small, so it's only 3 million, and these will we will look at the liquidities that are trapped in the pre-sold process, and this is what the amounts are for. Another one, what estimates you had concerning Boreal sales? Boreal is in the sale stage. It's a rhythm, a moderate one, I would say. There will be a campaign to accelerate this rhythm, but in our budget, we see an estimate of selling 60 to 70 apartments this year. Another question, actually a couple of them. Do you believe that the sales recovery in Q4 was due to legislative changes, or do we see an improvement in the loan environment? Of course, there was an impact when talking about the changes. It was in August where there was the first announcement about the legislative changes. Then when they became certain, at the end of the year, of course, a lot of people tried to sign their contracts. There wasn't an improvement of the business environment in Q4. I wouldn't say that, but I could see also at the beginning of this year an increase in the tendency of sales, and these are correlated with the loan environment. Everybody expects an interest rate decrease and an improvement in the environment. More conservatively, in Q3, we estimated to the loan portfolio to recover as to before the increases. Can you give us more details about the financing operations, share increases, bond issuance, and banking loans that you intend for 2024? Mainly, we will have funding operations for the new projects. So for investments, we have approved 25 million is the maximum for the share increase. And if we will need additional funding, then we will talk about the issuance of shares. We do not believe that in the short term we will issue more bonds. And as for loans from the banking system, we have the new projects that we have an ADV of 40 to 60. Another question, can you give us a guidance for 2024? I don't know exactly what you refer to, but as perspectives, and of course you can assess the market also, our estimates are to see a recovery in the market in Bucharest, but also nationwide. We expect a high demand on the medium term, and we also need solvable demand. But for Bucharest, in the next 3 to 5 years, we see a lower rhythm of increase. We know that the regional planning are blocked, and the current permits will be consumed. We estimate a 3-year gap and a lot of pressure that will entail an increase in pricing both on rental and on the real estate market. Of course, we have a significant inventory of over 100 million, and we will be able to maximize this value in the following 3 years. So from this perspective, we are pro-cyclical when looking at the inventory. As previously mentioned, we will see a recovery in the second half. If the interest rate decreases below 5%, we expect a significant recovery in the sales. This is our estimate on the sales, and on the development side, we will look at Iași. We expect the development of the greenfield project. So there are no further questions. Please communicate to us every time you need something or you require additional information. Thank you for attending, and thank you for being beside us. Have a nice day.